Greetings and salutations, friends. Character NPC back at the gaming table. Today, finishing up with our first World War II battle, the invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1938. This is a scenario using GDW's Europa. There were iterations of the ownership. I didn't mention them last time, but there was Game Designers Workshop, Games Research Design was the second iteration, and now it's owned by HMSGRD, or just HMS, Historical Military Simulations, I want to say. I don't have any paperwork from them. They don't seem to be really selling things. More kind of a, I don't know what the issue is. Anyway, I'll probably leave this part out, but I don't see that HMS is actually a functioning company these days, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so last time I was looking at this from the position I was playing in, which was on the opposite side of the map, just because that's where I was sitting, but I played the Germans, and this is Czechoslovakia in 1938, and here you can see the red border around Czechoslovakia. This was the original border, and so it was kind of long and skinny, with the edge being around these mountain ranges. And Germany is all around the outside, with this black line here that you see being the border between Germany and Poland. See here? Down here, you have Hungary here. You had what was Austria before they aligned themselves with the Germans. And then, of course, Italy down south of the Alps. Here again, Yugoslavia and Yugoslavia on this side, Yugoslavia here, Hungary here, and Poland, I mentioned, here. So Germany is a horseshoe shape around this extension of Czechoslovakia heading to the west. So north is this way, and the Pripyat marshes are this way. This is Berlin. And the objectives for this game, what would have made the Czechs capitulate, is to take 3 cities. Here, Prague, the capital. Here, Brno, another major city. And finally, here, Bratislava. Now, in the first game, the game is only 4 turns. Starting October 1, each game in Europa is 2 weeks. So you have 1 month, 4 turns, 4 2-week turns. And you're rolling on the weather starting in October. It's very common to have mud and snow. So there wasn't much time for the Germans to get the job done, let's say. And in the first game, I attacked from the far side over here down using these roads over here, which I'll show a little bit better here in a moment. But point being, it was because I took an extra unit that's available in this scenario because the Austrians had just aligned themselves with the Germans. There was a panzer unit that was a unit that would have been stationed in Vienna to keep down unrest. So rather than have that panzer division with its tanks on every street corner in Vienna, I used it, and that meant that I couldn't use this road here on the German side of the border with Czechoslovakia as a supply line because there would just be too much unrest. This time, I decided to go ahead and leave out the 2nd Panzer Division. And it made a lot of difference from a capability to take a city in the first turn. But combat-wise, I don't think it really made a whole lot of difference that I was missing that particular armored division. It is a big one. It's a 9.510, so it's a big unit. But it didn't make a huge impact in my ability to conduct my operations. I still completely failed and ended the game. I'll go through the scenario in another video in more detail, but I decided this time, with the help of my opponent who's reteaching me how to play Europa, you might say, that attacking across these rivers and things and into forts, and there's no armor into cities, it becomes very difficult for you to attack and defeat all the units that might be stacked in a city. For example, here there's air in there as well, so not all that stack is infantry and, you know, real fighting units. However, it's still a tough battle, and there are bonuses for being in the city defensive-wise, especially a full city hex like Prague is versus some of the others. So I started over here since I could put my troops in Vienna and then immediately on turn 1 move units as best as I could around the backside of Bratislava here. I moved units around to surround it as best I could, and I used some air units to support my attack. But it came down to mainly pulling in as much artillery and engineers as I possibly could who are not halved attacking into the city, and artillery not halved attacking over a river. So the key was bringing as much artillery as I could, and there was some rail artillery, air and rail artillery and things. I think I might have brought the rail artillery up here. Yeah, there's still a lot of artillery sitting here, which was a problem because the next thing I needed to do was attack Brno here, and to be able to get those artillery units on turn 2 up here to attack just seemed impossible. It's not. I'm saying that because I don't really know all the ins and outs to playing this game. I'm not very good yet, so it seems more difficult than is probably true. It seemed very difficult. I couldn't find a way to get all my artillery and engineers up to the next point to fight and try to take a city. My opponent had actually moved a lot of forces from here when he saw that I had mainly been focused on Bratislava and pulled them away from the other 2 cities, Bratislava being here. So it was a good battle this time, and it felt good to take a city even though I needed my opponent's help to really focus on how am I going to take that city in one turn, because it was defended, you know. And you can see here, this one, Brno, well defended, and I had to take out some of these units. Actually did an overrun there. So that worked out a little bit, but still 4 turns goes quickly, and with my opponent putting me out of supply as much as possible and taking advantage of things where he could, it's a tough battle. And I still ended up having some units left out of supply. I just couldn't get them out. This is his units out of supply here, and roads that the Germans have taken so that it can't be used for supply. So basically everything in the eastern half of Czechoslovakia there, this way down the skinny bit of land, is all out of supply because everything's been taken and cut off this way. So it's been a very interesting battle, though I still say that I think this was lost politically I don't think this was lost in a battle. It certainly wasn't a battle of attrition. It wasn't something that couldn't be won by the Czechs in its initial phases. Now, there's a whole different conversation to be had about politics and war when it comes to years of conflict. The war, of course, did not end. It was the first battle. And then Hitler moved on and took Poland. So certainly they would not have been able to stand off for a long period of time because the Allies weren't coming to help them like they said they were going to do. Neville Chamberlain and some of the others had said that they would back this loose alliance that was becoming, that was starting to form up between Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Slovenia, Hungary over here. So all these nations kind of over here were aligning themselves along with the fear of Poland being invaded. This was kind of forming a loose alliance. And if the Russians had helped, as they said they were going to do, and the British and the French, the Germans never would have been able to succeed. But the Allies drug their feet for quite a while. And when the attack happened, they did nothing, as we all know. And they had lost a lot politically already in some meetings that had happened just before the invasion in 1938. So it's been a really interesting battle. I highly suggest playing the Europa games because they are all connected. They cover all the theaters of war pretty much. There isn't one for Manchuria, and that's our next combat will be Kulk and Gol in between the Japanese and the Russians in Manchuria. There isn't much covering Manchuria in World War II. I find that kind of interesting. I'm going to start digging into the details there and find out if there's some other game. But my friend has a scenario that covers Kulk and Gol, if I'm pronouncing that right. So that's it for now. I'm going to put some more things together that cover this scenario specifically. Maybe even read the scenario itself. It's only a few pages long. But I learned a lot about playing this, especially twice, both about playing the game and about what happened in this particular engagement of World War II and how politics took hold of things and caused the outcome that we all know, because the Czechs capitulated and then the Germans went on to attack Poland and felt empowered, really. So stay tuned for more.